Good morning, everybody. I am Camilla Sherwin, one of IIE's sustainability consultants. Welcome to this morning's awards webinar, How We Use Water in the Future. This year marks the 11th anniversary of the IIE Awards. Throughout the week, experts from a range of disciplines and backgrounds have been speaking on different environmentally related topics, sharing ideas and best practice, which we hope will inspire those who listen in to incorporate environmental decision-making and action into the very heart of what they and their organisations do. Never has there been a time more important to take this on. With climate change, biodiversity loss and natural resource depletion, in addition to changing socio-economic conditions and the current pandemic really threatening life as we know it. COP26 in November offers a glimmer of hope for uniting the efforts of governments around the world, but every organisation and every individual has a part to play in creating change. Before we start on today's event, I'd just like to mention the next two, and in fact last two webinars taking place this week. This afternoon, in the Future of Waste, and Dr. Anne Waldridge, Chief Operating Officer at Independent Safety Services Limited, who has a wealth of experience in the world of waste management and treatment, will be talking about the future of resource management with a particular look at the impact of the pandemic on the healthcare sector's wasteline. Paul Fieldhouse, a business growth advisor at WLP, will be delving into the circular economy and talking about the work of Ramco, one of the UK's leading surplus asset management companies. On Thursday, Georgina Wilson-Powell, founder of eco-lifestyle magazine Pebble, will be giving the keynote speech at our grand finale of this week's award events. She'll focus on battling greenwash, embedding climate action into culture through everyday activism and consumer messaging. Following her presentation, the work of all IIE members who've achieved their accreditations this year, despite the challenges of the past 18 months, will be celebrated, and the awards for outstanding achievers and sustainability influencer will be announced. You can sign up for these events through the IIE website. Please do so, they are going to be fascinating. So just on to today's presentation, this is the running order. I will shortly hand over to today's speakers. We will be running questions and answers through the Q&A box, so please do, and we'll go through all those at the end. Following that, I will announce the winner of this year's Best Water Reduction Award, and a quick thanks to the award sponsor, Cool Food Pro. This is a project run by the Peterborough Environment City Trust, which works with the catering sector to reduce their environmental impact. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on the IIE website shortly. So, to introduce you to today's speakers, we're lucky to be joined by Barbara Hale and Ben Earl. Barbara is Head of Water Efficiency Engagement at Waterwise, the UK's leading water efficiency NGO. She's part of the team behind Waterwise's most successful campaigns, including the annual Water Saving Week, and she is the creator of the Pledge 2021 Water Saving Challenge. For IIE members in the audience, participating in either of these campaigns can contribute to the project section of your IIE award. Ben is Director of Sustainability, Energy and Water Efficiency for utility consultancy SKEWB, where he is leading on key partnerships across various sectors. Ben has also held positions at Southern Water, where he led on the project called Target 100, a multi-million-pound demand reduction programme across the southeast, and at B&Q, where he was the climate change advisor and then environmental affairs manager. He's also worked for several leading environmental charities and is currently leading Future South, a public-private partnership promoting sustainable development across the Solent. So, with no further ado, I would like to hand over to Barbara.
Thank you for the introduction, Camilla. Welcome everyone. I'm Barbara Hale, Waterwise's Head of Water Efficiency Engagement, and I'll be talking about why we need to save water, what Waterwise is doing to help businesses and the general public save water, and what you as a business can do to encourage your employees to become more water efficient. We'll start with a quote by Sir James Bevan from the Waterwise Conference 2019, which perfectly sums up the problem. With population growth changing weather patterns, including hotter summers and drier winters, water is becoming increasingly vulnerable to scarcity, even in the UK. By 2040, we expect more than half of our summers to exceed 2003 temperatures. That will mean more water shortages. By 2050, the amount of water available could be reduced by 10 to 15%, with some rivers seeing 50 to 80% less water during the summer months. It will mean higher drought risk caused by the hotter, drier summers and less predictable rainfall. On the present projections, many parts of our country will face significant water deficits by 2050, particularly in the southeast, where much of the UK population lives. This being a warning from the Chief Executive of the Environment Agency, we should be concerned. Let's get into a bit more detail here. The population of England and Wales alone is projected to increase by 8.7 million by 2050, while the PCC is going up. 40% of people in the UK think they only use 20 litres a day, which is very far from the truth, as at this stage, the average PCC per capita consumption, so how much water people use per day, is around 145 litres. If we don't become more water efficient, we're at the risk of losing natural habitats. Using water more efficiently means that we can minimize the amount of additional water resources taken from our rivers and aquifers. At this moment, more than 1 in 5 bodies of water in England are suffering or at the risk from too much water being taken from it to supply households and businesses. More than half of the species that depend on UK rivers and wetlands are in decline, with 30% of our freshwater and wetland species being threatened with extinction. Climate change will make this even more severe by increasing the frequency of severe droughts and reducing flows in many rivers by 15 to 20%. And finally, the carbon footprint. Operational emissions from the water industry account for nearly 1% of UK's total carbon emissions. This is because, of course, water needs to be abstracted, treated, and delivered to homes and businesses. So the less water we use, the lower this carbon footprint will be. Non-household water use accounts for 30% of total water consumed in England. So making changes in how you use water in your business will make a real difference. Who are Waterwise? We're a leading UK not-for-profit dedicated solely to water efficiency. Our vision is that water will be used wisely every day, everywhere. I'll tell you a bit about what we do. One of the main parts of our work are research projects in the field of water efficiency, of course. So we both commission and collaborate on projects including water using habits and water using habits of Gen Z specifically, water use outside the home, sectoral guidance and rainwater harvesting, research delivered with the Environment Agency and the Mayor of London. And we have a new piece of research on smart metering and climate emergency delivered together with Archiva that will be available in November. Our campaigning work is the main part of our activity that's mostly customer and business facing. So we've got our flagship campaign, Water Saving Week, which grows every year, and in 2021, we've reached 4.4 million people in just 1 week with environmental messages and simple tips how they can save water. Water's worth saving. This year's edition is still running now. It's an industry-wide campaign run in cooperation with Water UK. It reached 19 million people last year, and this year I think we will get to 22 million, again spreading the awareness of the problem. And finally, Pledge 2021, our behaviour change campaign, which we sometimes refer to as Water Saving Veganuary. So this campaign in its first edition last year had 1,128 people sign up, and together they saved at least 2.281 million litres of water in just 1 month. And because this campaign runs throughout the month, and the participants receive daily short and snappy water-saving messages, stats and tips on what to do, it has a potential of creating real change in people's habits and behaviours. Our policy work focuses on driving the policy and regulatory agenda across the UK, pushing for more ambition in the area of water efficiency. We work with water companies in England, Wales, Scotland, Isle of Man and Northern Ireland. We sit on and guide multiple steering groups and Tuscan Finnish groups associated with them. We also facilitate connections between the industry and the government, and are currently working on the water efficiency strategy for the UK refresh as the current strategy is coming to an end. Finally, we've got our own training and accreditation schemes. We've developed checkmark for offices to help businesses improve water efficiency on site. This means that we help them implement solutions to become more water efficient, lower the bills, and of course lower their environmental impact. And we've also got our Waterwise training, which is a 2-part course that we're working on getting online at this point, but it's also available to book at this moment. So Waterwise training educates people and brings them up to speed on the latest water efficiency developments within the UK and outside, going in depth into what the problem is and how we can work to mitigate it. It's ideal for both decision makers and customer service staff so that they can better answer customer questions about water efficiency. So all these areas feed into how we support businesses and the general public. So for business, collaborating on projects, smart metering and more. So we work with businesses. Arkiva is a company that produces water smart meters. So we're open to collaboration with business and working on research that will then help them and the industry become more water efficient. We run non-household water efficiency campaigns as well. So this year's Water Saving Week was focused specifically on non-household use. So we're trying to address the problem on that front as well. Of course, the checkmark for offices that I have just mentioned and our water efficiency training contribute to this as well. How do we support consumers? So most of our campaigns are either awareness building, such as Water Saving Week and Water's Worth Saving, or we've got a pledge campaign aiming to change behaviours, and we're now expanding into new platforms and new formats to reach even more people and stress the importance of saving water. We've got lots of freely available resources and information on our website, both for household and non-household users. We've got a research database on our website, and that also includes a database of resources for kids. Finally, what can businesses do to encourage their employees to save water? Firstly, we always stress that it's important to focus on the why, so that it's not just something they are forced to do without feeling compelled or feeling the need themselves. So starting with simple things such as utilizing internal comms to show your team members the true picture and what the current situation really looks like, to get them on board is a great start. Posters around the office and internal comms, even though it's a cliche at this point, they can still be effective depending on the correct message. In a study by Robert Cialdini, being informed that most of the hotel guests who use their towels produce at least 10% better reuse rate than regular environmental messages. So this means that what we need to focus on in the messages is creating new social norms and enforcing them by letting people know what they are and how they compare to their peers. Another thing here that's worth mentioning are employee-led initiatives. So recruiting your own employees to create an internal water-saving squad will get your team actively involved, and the engagement of the rest of the company is more likely to, get on board because they identify with the cause rather than being forced into it. Such groups successfully functions at Affinity Water, and their water saving squad organizes internal and external events, attends big affairs, and basically keeps working on water saving initiatives within the company. Then we'll move on to external initiatives. So there are lots of things available, not only from Waterwise, there are also charities like Hubbub and more, that provide lots of free resources that companies can use. The easiest way to engage is basically use our website or contact us directly. Another thing that you can do is encouraging your employees to join our Pledge 2022 campaign, which, as I said, is a 30-day campaign when every day participants receive a short message on why they need to save water. So that usually involves a relevant stat and a small water saving challenge. So engaging in this company-wise can produce big results while doesn't require much resources on your part. And finally, checkmark for offices. By getting the checkmark for offices, you can demonstrate your commitment to saving water by working towards achieving it, or if you're already water efficient, then demonstrating that you have already put this forward as a key goal. All the details can be found on our website if you're interested, and I'd encourage you to take a look. Thank you very much. For all resources and information, visit waterwise.org.uk, or feel free to get in touch with myself or other members of the Waterwise team. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. That was brilliant. I actually remember where I was when I heard that Sir James Bevan speech. A bit like remembering where you were when John Lennon died, but I remember it's sort of something that we all take for granted, isn't it? And we all take water for granted, and we need to be more careful with it and understand the real threats. Right, I'd now like to hand over to Ben. Don't forget to there's a couple of questions coming up in the chat, that's brilliant. And but keep the questions coming, put them in the Q&A box or in the chat. We'll pick both of them up. Thank you, Ben.
Good morning, everyone. Just waiting for my slides to come up. I've got a blank screen here. Anyone else? Can you see that come up?
It's still blank for me. Give it another moment. And
this worked in practice.
I know, but that's always the way, isn't it? If not,
try again.
Then April can. So I think.
Can you see that now?
We can see it. It might actually be April who has got the screen. So
okay.
Try. Okay.
That's fine. Do you want to? So, April, you're in charge of the control line. Just checking that.
Yes, I've got it. Just let me know when you want me to skip ahead.
Okay.
Okay. Well done, Ben.
So, good morning, everyone, and it's great to be with you today. I'm going to talk to you a bit more. Well, I'm going to build on what Barbara outlined, but also talk a bit more about what's happening for new developments and in the water industry more generally. So if we can move on to the next slide. There we go. So yes, the actual key effects that Barbara was mentioning of what's happening with water generally. I mean, obviously climate change is going to have a significant impact, and a number of different reports have come out to suggest this. So the National Infrastructure Commission, for example, is saying that the chances of having a severe drought before 2050 are much higher. Demand for water is increasing generally in the population. And obviously by 2043, we've got a population of 62 million projected. And household water consumption at the moment is going up still. Before COVID, it was around about 143, 144 litres per person per day. And actually, we found with COVID that with so many more people working from home, actually this has now gone up by another 20% or so. Now, clearly, some of that will shift as more people start going back to the office. But the point is that water usage in this country is still much higher than it needs to be. And we've got to all work together to get it down. And obviously, non-household is as important here. Household consumption is the biggest usage of water in the country, if you like. But actually non-household is also really important. If you look at current levels of abstraction, then actually for some of our precious chalk streams, remember we've got about 7/10 of all the chalk streams of the world are in the UK, and that they are massively over abstracted at the moment. So a lot of the water companies are now looking to reduce the abstraction for water to go into public supply. That's going to put more pressure on actual supplies. And then the other thing that's key to mention is there is a performance gap between new buildings' estimated water use and the actual water use. And of course, that is down to the fact that when you move into a new office or you move into a new home, people occupy that office and people occupy that home, and they don't always follow predicted routes. So, you know, we do have a role to play in managing demand going forward. Next slide. So DEFRA has basically set out some new goals for industry. These 3 goals are clearly outlined here. This is for a resilient, safe and affordable water and wastewater service, a thriving natural environment with increased environmental value, clean rivers and sustainable ecosystem. And then maybe more pertinent for today, an industry trusted by consumers that deliver day-to-day excellence, supported for vulnerable customers, that acts in the long-term interests of society and the environment. So, you know, we have to put in place those building blocks to make sure that we have sustainable supplies for the future. And next slide. And actually the pressure on the water industry from the regulators is actually huge. So picking up on the government agenda, that's now fed through to the Environment Agency, Consumer Council for Water and Ofwat in actually driving serious commitments during this 5-year business plan period. So we're currently about a third of the way through this current 5-year business plan for the water companies. And by 2025, companies have to have delivered these key targets: 40% reduction in sewer flooding, 64% drop in supply interruptions, quite a massive reduction in leakage with a longer term trajectory going forward, 34% reduction in pollution incidents. And if you look at the one at the bottom, a 13% reduction in water use by customers. Now, if we go on to the next slide, please. Now that breaks down to, this is all the water companies across the country and this is the percentage of reduction in water usage they are trying to deliver by 2025. Now, Affinity Water has the biggest at 12.5%. But if you look, you'll find your local water companies there and what their target is. So this is something that the whole water industry is engaged in. And actually, it's the most tricky because it's the thing that is generally outside of the water company's control. Next slide, please. So when I was at Southern Water, we commissioned a piece of research with the Green Alliance, a green think tank, that basically re-looked at the evidence and basically said, if you take on average that water use in the home is obviously a significant amount of water use, but it's about a fifth of your energy bill in the home is related to hot water usage at home. So if you combine the savings from being water efficient, and this is not sending you back to the caveman existence, this is actually just getting rid of water wastage in the home, you can save about 78 quid a year on your energy and water bills, which, okay, is not perhaps as dramatic as lacking your loft or changing your energy supplier, if there's any left to change to, of course. But actually, this is still for those customers struggling with bills and the cost of living, then, this is something worth thinking about. Next slide, please. So what is the industry doing? Well, Water UK have recently come out with their 2030 roadmap, which is quite an ambitious programme to show how the water industry is actually going to be meeting the goals of the COP26 summit and actually where net zero needs to go. And they've come out with a target to reduce by 10 million tonnes of greenhouse gases by 2030. That's 20 years ahead of where the governments say we have to be as a society. And that's the investment of between 2 and 4 billion going ahead to do this. And there are 5 key targets they've got in mind. They want to increase the amount of renewable power that the industry is using. They want to see a 60% reduction in process emissions. This is, if you think about water, is a very heavy product, so it uses a lot of energy in moving it around and treating it. So actually, what can you do to reduce those emissions in cleaning up the water system and pumping and providing that supply? Then you've got the water and energy savings that I touched on for customers. How can you help customers to reduce that? You've then got the whole area of green gas, and we know obviously gas is in the news at the moment. Are there opportunities to use waste gas from the wastewater process to do even more for the industry and to cut emissions and costs? And then, of course, you've got the whole area of low emission vehicles and where that comes into it. So they, Water UK have responded with quite an ambitious target, and I think it's really important to, if you want more information, to go and have a look at that on the Water UK website. Next slide, please. So, what is happening more in the southeast, for example? So now you've got these new regional water resource bodies, and this is all about cooperation between water companies. So, you've got Water Resources East, for example, covering sort of East Anglia region, but you've got the southeast of England. You've got a number of water companies that are working together actively under these 4 key areas. They're looking at the environment system, how the water is comes into supply, the wider southeast economy, if you like. You've then got non-public water supply for industry and non-household, and you've also got public water supply. And those 4 key areas are being blended to actually look at what those needs are going forward. And it's a very positive thing because, we've heard a lot about the national grid for water, if you like, and why can't you move water from the more water abundant north to the south? Well, actually, it's clearly not, climate change is changing that on its head. In fact, we've had quite a lot of resource issues in Scotland recently, which you'd never think of before, the Northwest. But actually, I alluded to it earlier that water is quite expensive to pump around. So you maybe not national grid for water, but you've certainly got these regional grids in cooperation for water, and that is something that we all welcome in the industry. Next slide, please. So what's happening in this, the way they're assessing it? I've got a little graphic here showing you how some of the schemes that are being talked about, where shared water resources are being developed for one another. So I'll give you one example, and that's Portsmouth Water down on the south coast are building a new reservoir that's going to be tapping into excess spring supply, which happens particularly in the winter months, which at the moment are just flowing out to sea. They're going to be building a reservoir to capture that water. And that water is not going to be used for Portsmouth Water customers. It's actually being used by Southern Water customers. So they're actually building a reservoir for the neighbouring water company. That gives you an indication of some of the scale of what's now taking place or what's planned. And this best value metrics that you can see on the left-hand side is how these decisions are being arrived at. So this combination of looking at the environmental need, the economic cost, but also the long-term resilience are now blending into the decisions that are being made going forward. Next slide. One of the new exciting things that, and this is a journey I've been on with government for a number of years now, firstly at B&Q, but then also in the water industry, is the whole idea of how does a customer, a non-household customer or a household customer, have any idea that the product they're using that uses water is water efficient. At the moment, you get very little information about it. And so we have, for a number of years, been campaigning for the universal nature of a water label on all water using products. Now, the bathroom industry launched a label on some products, so that goes on baths, taps, showers, and toilets.
Okay, so I've just lost Ben there temporarily. Hopefully he will come back in a moment. Just quickly, while he is rejoining us, Barbara, you mentioned two organisations who have useful communications materials. One was Hubbub. I didn't catch the other one.
Oh yes, because I got stressed and I didn't say it in the end. Yes, the other one is Water Footprint Network. Okay,
brilliant. Right, that'd be useful. Ben's left us, but he'll probably come back again in a moment. Now we have another question, which is about the Waterwise training, Barbara. Is it free for businesses? And if not, what is the cost? And the same question about Checkmark. And then does Waterwise training count towards CPD?
CPD as in within...
Oh, continual professional development. I don't know.
I think it well, I'm not sure what your criteria are, but I think it definitely could, because it's very specific. It's very data-based. So absolutely, I'd be happy to share more information with you on it, just so that you could decide. But basically, training and Checkmark are not free at the moment. We do run an annual free training session during Water Saving Week, so you can always make use of that. But in terms of training, if you sign up as an individual person, it's either £72 for just one session or £119 for both. However, if you would like training as a business, then you can pay a set amount, and then you can have as many attendees as you wish. So that is also an option. And the cost of the Checkmark is, I think, about £1,000 at the moment, depending on the number of offices, because then you'll get a discount. And also both of these services are discounted for Waterwise supporters, which might be something to consider if you'd like to make use of both.
Great, and we've got Ben back, so we'll disappear again, and we hope you can carry on, Ben. Thank you.
Apologies about that, everyone. I think it was my Wi-Fi that just dipped out there. So I was just talking to you about the water label, which is a really interesting scheme. It's currently in a voluntary form and it's not really been widely used, but all of these organisations have backed it, but they're not actually labelling most of their products yet. And the exciting thing is that the government has recently announced that they are now going to take this forward as a mandatory scheme, which is a similar process that's happened in Australia. Australia started with a voluntary scheme and then moved to a mandatory scheme. So by 2024, the government is hoping to introduce this across the UK, which will appear on all water-using products. Initially, they'll be the bathroom products, but we're working with them to actually get that expanded further. And why is labelling so important? Well, we think it's important because of the impact it's going to have on society. So the Energy Saving Trust did a major study looking at the impact of the label, looking at the evidence around the world, and they came up with figures showing that over 25 years, this could cut per capita consumption by 31 litres per person per day across the UK because of the impact of the messaging that comes from it. And this is based primarily on the sort of evidence of the energy saving label, which you're obviously very familiar with on white goods and when you buy an electrical good. It gives you that clear nudge, if you like. And it's important to say that these sort of savings would only be achieved by being government-led and then linked to minimum standards and changes to building regulations. And we think this will be really positive for developers because it'll enable them to do literally a fixtures and fittings approach where they will be able to prescribe, say, A-rated products for their developments. And that gives them the choice to buy from wherever they want to. And it's a much quicker calculation than having to go through the water calculator at the moment. And what would this mean for consumers if that kind of level of saving was achieved? This would save householders 34 billion on their water and energy bills over 25 years, which is the equivalent to about £40 per homeowner. So it kind of gives you an idea of the scale of what we're trying to do. So we welcome the announcement, and I'm currently working with the Waterwise Task and Finish group to actually help shape the government agenda with this, which is really, really interesting. Next slide, please. Water efficient new development is also happening now. So sorry for the picture of me standing on a building site. Those pictures of me are basically showing, this is a site at Northwest Cambridge, which is being developed by Cambridge University. They've sold some of their land and they've put in a new housing and primary school scheme. And what you're seeing there in the middle is a picture of what would be like a typical sub-scheme where soak away from the site is put into these sort of levees, and that is channeled into a central pond. And then the central pond, from there, they are collecting that water and then they're pumping it back into the development to flush toilets. So you're actually, if you look at the bottom left, you'll see that there are two pipes, one marked potable, one marked non-potable. And the idea is that the potable water comes into the flat or house. Normally you pay a water bill on it and that's your drinking water. But then your toilets are filled from a non-potable source. And this is the recycled water that comes off the development. And the picture on the top left is Fawley Waterside, that's down on the Solent. And this is a smart city development, which is looking to meet Southern Water's idea of being target 100. And again, to get to those sort of levels of saving, you need to be doing something additional to just going on the fixtures and fittings in that property. Next slide, please. But actually, water neutrality is the next thing that we're trying to move forward as well with society and with developers. And what is water neutrality? Well, basically, it's saying when you build a new housing development, the amount of water you're taking out of the environment for that development is balanced. So you're actually not adding any additional to it. And you do that in 3 steps. So the first is you reduce that water use. You put in those water efficient devices, you put in smart metering, and you do that water saving culture with those residents. Step 2 is you recycle or you reuse that water. Firstly, by rainwater harvesting. So that's simply things like water butts off the roof. You then look at things like grey water recycling, which is perhaps recycling the shower water to be used in toilet flushing going forward. And then there's the radical of even black water recycling, which is basically using final effluent from the wastewater treatment works, cleaning up to adequate supply. Most of the water going into or going out of a wastewater treatment works is actually very high quality water. You just can't drink it. So can you then reuse that water to flush toilets in that development at community scale? Once you've done all of those things, you're then going to be left with a residual amount of water you're still going to need for that development. And that's where the offsetting comes in. Can you reduce the need for water in existing homes in that catchment, for example, or can you retrofit a school to cut usage? So that actually offsets the amount of water. And this is really, really exciting and is a whole new area that is going from a big study area, which Waterwise has been involved with amongst others, to a now an actual scheme that gets traction and gets progress moving forward. Next slide, please. So why pursue water neutrality? Well, water neutrality has the potential to deliver large-scale water and carbon savings. Pursuing the policy can help ensure sufficient water is available to meet the needs of people, business, and the environment. This is a crucial one, and again, a positives for the developers is new housing developments could be unlocked in the planning process in areas of water stress. There are now some parts of the country where actually carrying on approving housing developments is going to be tricky because there is not going to be the available water for those developments. This can help unlock that. And then it can be delivered with the deployment of existing technology. However, the key thing here is that the planners, the water company, and the developers all need to work together and actually monitor over the long term. And again, there isn't really a culture of that happening on the long term. Most developers want to get permission, build the houses and get off the site and move on to the next one. We've got to change that culture going forward. Next slide, please. So the water neutrality benefits. Well, the actual work that's been going on with the Waterwise study that happened is showing that for every water neutral home built, we could save around 112,000 litres every year. That's a related carbon saving of 43 kilograms of carbon. And then, as I alluded to earlier on, that sort of money saving is in the range of sort of 44 to 78 pounds per home. And that could reduce water demand in the home to about 85 litres. So you're really significantly lowering that per capita consumption. This lowers the environmental impacts. So the amount you're needing to extract from the rivers and the groundwater, improves resilience, and it enables this future housing, which is really, really important. Next slide, please. So what are the enablers? Well, we want to see the increased awareness of the potential and the public awareness of water resource issues in the UK. It's got to go up because at the moment it is very low. Some of the stark sort of figures that we've seen are just not in people's minds as a serious issue. People turn on the tap and they just think water flows. Funding is going to be needed to make this happen. And some of this is kind of potentially there already. Some water companies are offering discounted connection charges for water efficient new homes. You've got water efficiency budgets going up to actually make programs happen. And you've got smart metering, which is actually having a big impact on how water is used by customers. But you need more supportive policies, how the national planning policy framework could require water neutrality in a similar way to flood risk neutrality, for example. Some local plans are requiring this. There's a picture of Dartford. They've been quite progressive on this. What about that business resilience? Are businesses ready for the interruptions for supply that are going to be coming? I mean, we mentioned that Waterwise have been doing a study with the golf course sector. Golf courses are probably one of the first sectors that are going to be switched off in a drought. And, this will have a massive impact on that sector and their business model. And then what about these closed partnerships, this multi-stakeholder approach, particularly with the offsetting? I mean, that's going to be really, really crucial going forward. So next slide, please. So I think this is the last key slide. This is just showing that SKEWB is at the moment partnering in a key program or Ofwat Innovation Fund bid. We've just won the funding for with Affinity Water and all the partners that you see on the right-hand side. Here there's going to be 3 different sites of 1,000 homes each, where we're going to be implementing the principles of that water neutrality as set out. And those different partners, Propel Air, for example, are going to be working on a domestic water efficient toilet. If you're a business and you haven't looked at Propel Air toilets, I'd suggest you do so. They offer a toilet flushing at 1.6 litre flush, which is mixing air and water to do their job, and a very high performance toilet. It is more of a commercial product at the moment, but and they're now looking to develop a domestic one as well. Hydroloop are really interesting. They've got very integrated systems for new homes where it will recycle automatically your shower water and turn it into toilet flushing and for use in washing machines. Again, it's a self-contained unit that does it all for you. And again, it's another product they're going to trial. Rainwater harvesting in the form of STS. There's others there that are going to be trialing it, and it's going to be crucially, it's going to be in partnership with a NAV as well to make this happen. This is a kind of an independent company that intervenes between the developer and the water company to make it happen. So that will be coming, and I think it's quite an interesting case study that will be studied for its effectiveness over the months and years. And the next slide, please. So just to summarise, the risk of drought and availability of water resource problems are looming. Water companies have large targets to meet and need to work in partnership to hit them. So if you are interested in doing something on water efficiency, your water company will be interested in talking to you. The new mandatory water labelling can simplify the specification, fixtures and fittings for developers. It will also be a key tool for consumers. Water neutrality can deliver large-scale water and carbon savings and provide resilience for the environment. And new housing developments can be unlocked in the planning process through water neutrality. But overall, different sectors need to work together to deliver these solutions in a joined-up way. And on my final slide, thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Ben. That was fascinating and really interesting to see that link up between various different areas. You were talking about the carbon saving as well as the water neutrality hierarchy is very like what will be talked about this afternoon in the waste webinar with the waste hierarchy, and it really brought home to me about how difficult sort of sustainable development, as in housing development, is going to be or is. So we have a couple of questions. What are good examples for activities people can run in the workplace during Water Saving Week? And that might be a question for Barbara, but Ben, you might have some good ideas as well.
Yes, so every Water Saving Week, we publish a website containing all the information about themes and stats related to these themes. So every single day we'll have both posts with information, but also with little activities. So what we do every single year is promote the 4-minute shower, which is the optimal shower length for water efficiency. So we often have competitions such as who can have the shortest shower with people tweeting their times online. So these activities can easily be transferred onto your business. So using that information and the resources, which are always freely available, is a great way to start. There's also, as I said, a free webinar every year during Water Saving Week, and it's usually the first part of our water saving training. It's a little bit simpler than the usual training, but it's a great way to introduce your team to water efficiency and the know-how of how to address the problem and where it's coming from. So lots of resources online. Our website's always the best place to look.
Great, thank you very much. One question which would be a yes or no one. Do we have a figure for how much water the agricultural sector uses? Or is there an easy place to get that?
So whoever asked that question, if you'd like to email me afterwards, I will try to dig that up for you. But this is actually a tricky question as well. because when we're talking about agriculture and food, that's, well, the figure that I'd probably be able to get to is the figure of how much fresh water they use, or potentially how much green water they use. But what we are not talking about here is embedded water. So that's how much water has been used to produce the animal feed, how much water is being used throughout the whole production chain. So, and these figures have a massive impact on how much water will be used in the end. So, so yeah, if you're curious, I'll try to dig that up for you. But do bear in mind that it's not the whole picture.
Just to add on the sort of non-household, what you can do in the office kind of thing. I mean, the two biggest problem areas for most offices are toilets and urinals. They're the biggest things that probably use the most water or leak the most water, because some urinal controls fail and so they constantly run, and toilets are notoriously hard, are found to be leaking in a lot of cases. There is a big problem with a lot of toilets. They have seals that leak over time, and we're trying to tackle it with the industry more generally. But always, particularly small businesses. I mean, large businesses will be in big offices, and then you've got the whole, it's about running campaigns to make sure that if you see a leaking toilet in your office, you get it reported and get it fixed. If you're in a small office, it's very similar to the sort of domestic situation, which is just measuring the flow rates of any showers, seeing how water efficient they are, and then actually just checking on, are there things you could fit to actually reduce water in those offices? It's a bit of a boring process, but it's a bit similar in the way you kind of walk around your house and you replace your light bulbs with your kind of LEDs. Is just have a regime set up to do that, and over time that will save you a lot of water.
Yeah, that's good advice. Ben, you mentioned those kind of quite innovative products like Propelair and Hydroloop and various other ones. Is there one good website to go where you can see all those names as one rather than on your slide?
Not really, no. I mean,
right.
I think it is, innovations in the water world. I mean, you'll find a lot of water efficient shower heads on the market. That
sure.
part of the business has developed. You can get very low flowing toilets now. As I say, Propelair have really taken it one stage further. But no, it's still quite a small part of the market, and I think this is why we're quite keen on the label driving that innovation, because once you have a label and it comes with thresholds, then a bit similar to how it was with the energy label, that was something I was doing at B&Q, is actually we banned products below a certain level to be sold through B&Q stores, which then drove up the efficiency of those products and pushed the market to innovate. And I think, we would not have had LED lighting without the ban on the incandescent light bulb. We need stuff to be happening in the market to drive this innovation. And it's not just waiting for customers to spot their water efficient product and buying it when it's far more expensive. You've got to drive the market to get the cost down and get the efficiency up.
Thank you. I know that B&Q certainly were leaders in the sustainability market, probably down to you, Ben, but other...
No, it wasn't just down to me. It was all part of the team.
Yeah, that's good advice. I have put Barbara's email, by the way, into the chat box, but obviously it will be available on the webinar afterwards, but for the person who asked that question. Right, I think that we will now actually just move on to the today's award. And I'd like to, we'll just finish the question and answers there. So in addition to bronze, silver and green accreditation, we're also awarding the IIE member organisations for going above and beyond in 7 special categories. The results have been announced throughout the week and will be reiterated at tomorrow's final event. But today we're ready to celebrate the winner of our Best Water Reduction category 2021. When judging this, the judges were looking for the best reduction of water against their baseline year with clear evidence of continual improvement each year. Entries were judged on progress through investment in water-saving technology and behaviour change campaigns to support reducing wasted water. So interesting that these are the points that Ben has just mentioned. So now it's the exciting moment when I reveal this year's winner. Next, and it was Cambridge and Counties Bank. Congratulations. The judges felt that Cambridge and Counties Bank showed impressive leadership in their refurbishment plans and the inclusion of water-saving systems. These have led to a reduction in water use year on year since investment started. So what did they do? Well, all toilet systems were replaced to new dual flush systems, and constant flow urinals have been replaced with motion activated ones. Taps offering immediate hot and chilled water were installed in the kitchens to eliminate the need for kettles and water coolers. Large, efficient dishwashers were installed to reduce the frequency of cycles within a day, as well as reduce the need for hand washing dishes, which can consume high volumes of water. Also very noteworthy and receiving commendation is Inspire Education's Peterborough College campus, which has reduced water consumption by 53% since its baseline in 2010, despite seeing an increase in student numbers and the opening of a gym on site. The college also undertook significant refurbishment, upgrading 7 toilet blocks across the site, including replacement of cisterns for modern dual flush, replacing old taps with aerated push ones, and all urinals were swapped for modern systems with sensor control flushes. The college also monitors water weekly as part of their leak detection processes to ensure leaks are identified and rectified quickly. So really interesting that many of the things stated in the award there were brought up throughout the presentation. So next slide, please. Just like to say final thank yous. Thank you very much to Barbara and Ben. Those are brilliant and fascinating presentations, and we're very grateful to you for giving your time today. Also, thank you to the awards sponsors, Cool Food Pro, and to the other sponsors who've sponsored this year's awards, whose logos you can see there.